there, my name is Marley and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a video that I do on a monthly or bi-monthly basis where I talk about everything that I watched recently and say what I would recommend and what I would not recommend watching. This is TV shows and movies. I was going to start doing these videos less often because I found I was not watching that many things, but then October happened and I actually watched a lot, quite a few TV shows and then also a lot of movies, as I was making it a goal for myself to watch a lot of like scary, creepy movies to get into that Halloween spooky vibe. I'm going to do this the same way I did my last video where I put it into two sections, so the things I would not recommend and the things that I did. I'm gonna just get the bad out of the way first. There weren't that many things this month that were bad, but there were a few. So as for the TV shows that I do not recommend watching, the only one that I have is Riverdale, which is not a unique opinion, and it's something that I've brought up in previous videos that I do. This is a teen drama show that has just really gone off the rails. I think this season was probably my least favorite. I just find the show has just gotten so ridiculous. There's literally singing in every single episode now. I feel like that used to be an every once in a while thing, and sometimes it was weird, and now they're literally just doing it in like every single episode as if this is Glee or something, and I just don't think that's the right move. As always, Betty's storyline is normally my favorite, where she has like a mystery she's trying to solve, and that I feel is like the saving grace. Betty and Archie thankfully got together in this season and I did enjoy that, but I just feel like the writing is like so lazy. I just feel like I like when shows have these epic moments between the couples, and a lot of their scenes were just like super lazy. Like they don't even care about us as the viewers caring about the couples anymore. So yeah. Don't recommend Riverdale. As for the movies that were not good, I binged all of the Scream movies this month, which I'll talk about later, but because of that, then I decided to watch the first Scary Movie, which is like a parody franchise that makes fun of Scream and other horror movies, and I never saw them because that's just not really my thing, to watch those kind of like silly parody movies. But because I was so into Scream and the first one is really based on Scream, I decided to watch it, and I really did not enjoy my time. I really didn't. I think for one thing, the movie is pretty old now, that a lot of things were outdated, but also that sense of humor is just not for me. Like I was watching it with some other people who were laughing and I was just really uncomfortable. I felt like there were a lot of uncomfortable scenes, like non-consensual scenes, for example, and I just don't think that's funny. So that's a no for me. I don't think I'll be continuing that series. Then because I read the book Frankenstein this month, I wanted to watch one of the Frankenstein adaptations, and I started watching the Frankenstein movie. I think it was the 1998 one. I don't know if there's multiple. Oh, sorry, 1994 version. And I DNF'd it. I did not finish it. It was mostly because my boyfriend thought it was more boring than I did, but I still was finding it very boring, so. Next up, I watched Fright Nights. This has Colin Farrell in it. I feel like I remember it coming out when I was younger, like seeing the trailers, but I had never seen it. This is about a vampire that comes to town, and then this one teenage boy is kind of like the only one that realizes he's a vampire and has to try and defeat him and like take him down. Fun premise. I was pretty excited for it, but I ended up not really liking it that much. It was a very mediocre film. You could probably watch it and not hate it, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't great. Didn't really impress me. And the last movie I watched, ending it out on a sour note, I watched The Dare, which was, I think, trending on Netflix, so I decided to watch it. Pretty terrible movie. If you want to see really gory stuff, for some reason, there's definitely a lot of gore in this movie, but the execution of the entire film was pretty poor. It is about this group of people who get kidnapped and are trapped in this room. Definitely was reminding me of Saw in that way, and there is this mysterious masked killer who is coming in and basically just torturing them, and then you find out this whole backstory, as you can imagine, that this man wants to take revenge on these people for a certain reason. It's a pretty like typical format for a thriller. I've definitely watched ones like that, but this one was just done really badly, and it was like torture getting through. Like, you were watching people get tortured, but you were also getting tortured watching it. So just don't watch that if it pops up on your recommended like feed. And then everything else that I watched, I thoroughly enjoyed. So let's talk about the TV shows. Starting out, I watched Midnight Mass, which is produced by the people who made like The Haunting of Hill House and stuff. Overall, sure, I would recommend this show, but it is one that I feel a little bit mediocre or averagely about. This is about this town, a small town on this little island, and we're following a bunch of characters on there, including their priest, as they're a pretty religious town, and there is some weird stuff going on with the priest. And is this a spoiler? There's vampires. It's like a vampire show. And I liked a lot of that stuff, like stuff to do with the creepy vampire stuff. Whenever the priest was on screen, he was a really interesting actor to watch. However, there were a couple of characters that were so boring to watch, and I wish they would have done different casting for the character Riley, and then the main female character, who I honestly don't know what her name was. I feel like I didn't know the whole time I was watching. And not just the acting, but also the writing. They wrote these really long scenes for those boring characters where they were just talking, and it was ridiculous. It was truly ridiculous. It should not have been that long. However, there were a lot of cool moments in the show as well. It was just one of those things where it had such great potential and it did not live up to it. But I still would recommend if you are into vampires. Another show to briefly mention is Good Trouble. Although this is one I mention a lot, but I just want to say, like, I'm still loving the show so much. Callie, and frick, now I'm forgetting his name. Jamie. Callie and Jamie are like super cute. I feel like that ship is just getting more and more shippable every season. I love the tension of them being on opposite sides in the courtroom and them being exes but still having that like tension and attraction to each other. I honestly just love all the characters and all their storylines, and like, just watch it. Then, of course, you know I watched Squid Game. I was slightly late to this. I had a lot of people telling me about it before I finally gave in and watched it, and I really did just not want to stop watching it once I started. This is, as people probably know, about a bunch of different people who have financial issues mainly. They are in debt, and then they get kidnapped and are given the choice to play in this competition to win all this money. But it is a game to the death. It is a very violent show. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, people have been saying, and it is so good. However, I was disappointed with the ending. I really wish it could have gone out with a bigger bang than it did, and I just kind of wish it was a limited series and that it wasn't continuing. I'm pretty sure it's continuing. They left it on like a cliffhanger, but I enjoyed the show just like everyone else. I think it was put together quite well. I did find myself annoyed by some of the characters, like the old man. I didn't really love the twist regarding him. Oh, and the main character really annoyed me as well at the end. But anyways, I won't say spoilers, but if you haven't watched this yet, obviously watch it. Next up, I binged Sex Education Season 3, and I really enjoyed this season. I think it's getting better with each season. I do remember in Season 1, I struggled a little bit to get into it, but I'm so glad that I've been pushing through because Season 3 is the best season yet. If you guys don't know, it is about this high school and a bunch of kids there, and it deals a lot with like sexual topics, as you can imagine from the title. But originally it started out because this kid Otis, his mom is a sex therapist, so because of that he kind of has like more insight into sexuality than a lot of other teens. And so him and this other girl Maeve, who he has a crush on, they start this sort of like sex counseling business where they help out their peers with all of their sort of sexual struggles that they're dealing with. I just love this show. I mean, if you know me, you know I love shows that tackle so many like important, relatable, real life issues, and this show really does that. And I just feel like it's very unique though. Like, I feel like they do it in such a nice way. There's some great ships on the show as well, and some great characters. I love Otis's mom, and I actually quite liked Ruby in this season, and seeing Otis and Ruby's relationship with which a lot of people are talking about. And then I also always love Eric and Adam. They had some struggles this season, which is upsetting, but I still just love those two so much together and separately. If you like teen drama shows, I really would recommend it. I also watched Love on the Spectrum Season 2. I watched Season 1 last year. It is like an autism dating show. It's like a reality show that follows a bunch of different young people who have autism in Australia, and them just trying to date, trying to find love. It's a really cute and fun show. I feel like it can be very eye-opening for people who don't know a lot about autism, which I don't really, like I don't really know anyone with it. So it's very interesting to watch and also very entertaining and heartwarming as well. Also sometimes heartbreaking, but it's a really quick show to get through. So another one I really recommend. Again, with everyone else in the world, I watched season 3 of You, and this was a pretty crazy season, but I feel like it might have been my least favorite, but I like how it ended. So in this season, well, if you guys don't know the general premise, it's about this guy named Joe who is a stalker. He had some trauma when he was younger and he has a lot of issues, and so now he just latches on to women and he gets obsessed with them, and normally it ends up with him killing people and doing like crazy things and stalking them, obviously. So in this season, he is actually married to one of the girls he was stalking, Love. She also is crazy in her own way, as we know, and they're kind of trying to live this domestic life with their son. But of course, they get wrapped up in some drama. There's some murdering and some having to cover up murder. But I didn't love that it was starting out like that, like with him and Love together. So I like what ended up happening, and I look forward to like the new season just kind of being like refreshed and not really carrying over as much between the seasons. But it's still such a crazy show, like it just goes places you don't expect. So I highly recommend this show as well. Next up is The Babysitters Club. This is a kid show. It is meant for like kids or preteens or something, like not for me, but I still enjoy watching it. This was season 2 that came out this year. As you guys might know, it is about this group of young girls. I guess they're probably around like 12. They have this babysitters club where they all work together and run this little business and babysit. And then each of the girls normally has an episode dedicated to them and some sort of like issue that they're dealing with in their home life. So again, love shows like that are showing like real issues that people are going through and just having like representation. Speaking of, I actually did end up crying in one of these episodes as one of the girls is diabetic. She has type 1 diabetes that she is still pretty new to the diagnosis. I was just really moved by that storyline as I was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes this year as well. So that episode was just really, really special to me as someone who like doesn't really see diabetes rep in many things, like besides Nick Jonas. So I've never seen something like that in a show, and I found her storyline really relatable, even though she is so much younger than me. We both still have been newly diagnosed, so it was just really cool to see that storyline portrayed on screen. If I'm here, you can figure that, yeah, the footage was lost. It disappeared. You will see that past Marley pop up again, but there's a little middle section here that was lost. So where did I leave off? The last show that I watched in October was One of Us is Lying, which is the adaptation of the book by Karen M. McManus, which, let's move that over, which I read last year. It's a book that I really, really enjoyed, so I was very excited to watch the TV show adaptation. I did not finish it yet. That wasn't because it's not good, it's just I'm watching it with a friend. But it was a pretty decent adaptation so far. If you guys don't know, it's about this group of teenagers in high school who are all in detention one day, and then one of the kids ends up dying, and then all the remaining 4 kids that were there become kind of like the prime suspects in the investigation because they were the ones that were there, and it seems like all of them might have had a reason for wanting that guy to be dead. It definitely has Pretty Little Liars vibes because then messages start getting sent out to the whole school, kind of alluding to the fact that these kids are guilty, kind of revealing their secrets, stuff like that. So it's really, really fun. The show is doing like a pretty decent job of adapting the story, I think. I like a lot of the characters and actors. I do wish they got a different guy for Nate. I pictured him with dark hair. I pictured him to be just different, like, and the fact that the actor that plays Nate is so much younger than like his love interest, for example, like I just wish he could have been like the older one, and it just would have given off more like bad boy vibes. But it's still going pretty well and I would recommend watching it. But yeah, I haven't finished it, so no final conclusion on that. Then I have all of the movies that I watched in October that were actually good. So starting out the month, I watched The Strangers, which is a pretty popular horror movie, and I thought I had watched it, but I guess I didn't, because when I watched it this month, I was really, really impressed. It was very, very scary. It's about this couple who is having their own kind of like drama, but they're at this like cabin in the middle of the woods, pretty isolated, and then there's this group of like 3 people who just start attacking the house, finding their way into the house and like trying to kill them. It's really, really scary. It's a simple setup, but it's just done really well, and highly recommend that if you want like a scary thriller movie. Then I watched The Guilty with Jake Gyllenhaal. I love him, and if you're a fan of him, you should definitely watch the movie because he is basically the only one on screen the whole movie. He really carries the film, but it is about this police officer who clearly like something has happened, like he's been assigned like desk duty or like answering the 911 calls, and then he gets very wrapped up in this one case of this woman who seems like she's being kidnapped, and he's just constantly trying to like save her, and he's like in contact with her kids and stuff like that, and just getting very invested in her story. And there's twists and there's turns, and I think it's a pretty good one, again, if you want like a fast-paced police thriller. Next up, I watched No One Gets Out Alive. This is the movie that I feel didn't stick with me too much, but I do remember quite liking it and feeling positively about it. From what I remember, it is about this woman who came to America, I think it was America, illegally, so she doesn't have, you know, ID, and she doesn't have money and stuff like that, and so she ends up having to kind of take this room in this building that is pretty sketchy and not ideal, but it's kind of like her only option. As she's staying there, she notices some weird stuff going on. I think other people in the building start going missing. The guy that owns it is being very like sketchy to her. It ends up really like escalating and, you know, being a whole big thriller horror thing. But yeah, I really liked it. Again, on Netflix, I think, if you want a thriller movie. These are basically all like thriller horror recs. I also watched Urban Legends. This I decided to watch because it had some actors I really, really love, such as Joshua Jackson, which is Pacey from Dawson's Creek, and Michael Rosenbaum, who plays Lex Luthor in Smallville. This was like a late 90s, early 2000s slasher flick, I think clearly inspired by Scream. But it's basically about this college campus and all these different people that are going there in this like friend group, and there's this serial killer who is killing people based on urban legends. So like the whole legend of like you're gonna get in your car and there's gonna be a guy in the back seat waiting to kill you is like the first one, and then there's other things like that. So this is pretty fun. Just again, if you want like a fun slasher flick. I feel like I didn't guess the killer, so it's always good. Then I watched the horror movie Drag Me to Hell. I put this on my recommended list, but like I didn't love it that much personally. It has to do with this woman who works at a bank. She's very like nice woman, and then this older lady comes in wanting another extent on like her loan, and she can't give it to her because she's already given so many extensions, and then the woman curses the main girl. That's the reason I wasn't big on it, because I don't really like horror movies that are about like the devil and demons and like curses and possession and stuff like that. I prefer more of like the slasher flick, real life killer kind of thing. So this movie just wasn't really for me. It also got very, very gross, as a lot of horror stuff does. Pretty disturbing, kind of like weird imagery. So if you like that sort of stuff, I think you would like it. But yeah, not my favorite this month. Then I also watched the Babysitter duology. The first one's The Babysitter, the second one's The Babysitter Killer Queen. The first one was very, very good, very fun. It is about this preteen boy. He's probably like 12, and he still has a babysitter, and he loves her. Like, she's very beautiful and like very nice to him, whereas like he gets bullied at school. One day he stays up later than he normally does, and he oversees and overhears his babysitter has guests over, and they are performing some sort of like cult blood ritual. They kill someone, and so then he is like on the run from them the whole movie. They want to sacrifice him as well because they need blood of the innocent, and he's innocent. That's the first one. It's pretty fun. It has some stars in it like Robbie Amell, Bella Thorne, and other people you know. The second one was not as good. It kind of like went a little bit crazy, but it still had those like fun elements that the first one did. It had, you know, all of our main cast came back, so it was fun to see them again. Had some neat little twists to it, so they were both really fun. I would recommend. Guys, this video is a mess. I was editing and realized I actually got cut off like midway talking about Dune. So anyways, I watched Dune like so many people in the world. Overall, I quite liked it. So my boyfriend has read the book, so it was nice to talk to him about it because he actually like understands things better. Because when I first started, I was definitely struggling to understand the world and like what was going on with all of their different houses that they had. Anyway, so it was nice to talk to him about that after. But as the movie went on, I did sort of get to understand things better. You realize you don't really have to understand everything. You just need to know like what's going on with Paul RuPaul's storyline who you're following, which is Timothy Chalamet. It is definitely a chosen one story, which is what I seem to be talking about in my original video. Which is a classic. Like, I feel like I still like a chosen one trope. So it's kind of like, he's destined to be great. I don't even know. And then his mom also has like kind of special powers that like are the reason he has special powers. Then there's this whole other, oh, and it takes place in like the desert with dunes, and then there's like a huge sandworm that's really scary. I don't know. I ended up quite liking it, and I feel like I learned to kind of wrap my head around everything. It did get to be very long, where I was like, how is this movie still going on? But I still was pretty interested the whole time, and I'm interested to see what's gonna happen now. So yeah, I would recommend that. And then this was a rewatch, so normally I don't talk about those, but I binged Scream 1 to 4, and I just fell in love with these films like so much more. I always liked them, but rewatching them again all back to back, I'm like, yeah, these are officially some of my favorite movies. That's just how it is. As I've said, I love the concept of trying to guess who the killer is out of all these characters. I love Sydney, like she's such a badass, and I just like love her character, and I like how they're very funny as well. Yeah, everyone knows it. But I'm so excited for Scream 5. So yeah, that's everything I watched in October. It was quite a lot. So we'll see if I can do that again in November. Probably not. Let me know if you watched any of these things and what you thought, or what the best thing you watched in October was, the most like spooky thing, so then I can watch it. Thanks for watching this. Hope you will subscribe, and I'll see you next time.